Hi, thanks for joining me, Linnea Lembo with Coffee and Taxes. Today we will be discussing personal property tax, and this specifically relates to businesses. So this could be any sort of business, and we'll dive into specifically who has to pay this and what this tax represents, what assets and what materials get taxed. So, a lot of business owners are surprised and honestly frustrated when they first hear about business personal property taxes. And I get it. Most people think they've already got income taxes and sales taxes and payroll taxes. Now there's another tax. Unfortunately, yes. But this is not something that I've created as your accountant, and it's not a surprise tax that only applies to you and your business. This is a tax that's assessed by state and local governments on the equipment and assets that your business uses to operate. The assets that are typically included in business personal property tax are assets like computers or office furniture, machinery, equipment, tools. Those are the types of things that you'll see fixtures if you own a restaurant, office or restaurant equipment, manufacturing equipment, medical equipment. Basically, if your business bought it and uses it to make money, there's a good chance it could be considered business personal property tax. News is that not everything is taxable. This is where people get confused. Generally, business personal property does not include inventory held for sale, land, buildings, personal use property, intangible assets like trademarks, goodwill, vehicles, and it just really depends on the area of the state and what part of the country you're in as to what's taxable and if business personal property applies to you. So, I would recommend if you're not sure, the first point of contact should be reaching out to your county. The business personal property tax varies depending on what your NAICS code is, which is your business code, and what industry you're in. You might pay to your county or you may pay to your state. It's a really complex area, which is why we encourage you to reach out to your county first, and they'll be able to point you in the direction. What we can do from our side at Lembo Accounting Solutions is we can provide you the numbers. Once you know how to file, if it's online or if it's on a portal that they have, or if you mail in a return, we can provide you with the necessary information that would be needed to file to be in compliant. Let's get into how BPP is calculated. So, similar to how different counties assess property tax for residential real property or for autos, it's the same way with personal property tax. The net book value is the starting point. So, first we take the cost basis of an asset. Then we subtract out any depreciation that has been taken on the tax return, which leaves us with our net book value. And this is what we have noted as our starting point to begin to get the assessment on our taxed assets. Now, what some people might be thinking is great, I've already depreciated all of these asset classes that might qualify, for example, my furniture and my computers. So this must not apply to me. Unfortunately, there is a floor of 10%. And what do I mean by that? I mean that the net book value of the asset will never go below 10% of the cost value for the purpose of business personal property tax. So, unfortunately, you will always have business personal property tax on your assets for South Carolina. Who has to file BPP? This is the part business owners usually hate hearing. Almost all businesses are subject to some form of business personal property reporting. This includes LLCs, S corporations, partnerships, sole proprietors, side businesses, home businesses, online sellers, contractors, service businesses. If you're in business in South Carolina, you have to pay property tax. Even very small businesses may still have a filing requirement. A lot of business owners assume, well, I barely have any equipment, but even laptops, desks, and printers, monitors, tools, or small office furniture can create filing obligations. What happens if you don't file? When does this happen? Should you be expecting to receive notices in the mail right away? South Carolina is definitely on top of their taxes that are owed to them. So I always strongly encourage businesses to be compliant and be on top of their business property returns. Again, this is an annual requirement, and unfortunately, this is not a tax that can be avoided. Once you do receive that notice in the mail, you'll likely have to go back a couple of years and be audited to find out what your previous historical taxes might have been filed at, or in some cases, South Carolina will just come in and give you a business assessment with a bill. So, again, unfortunately, not filing doesn't mean no tax. It often just means more tax, more assessments, and more penalties. So be compliant and stay on top of your business personal property taxes. I can't speak for every state. I can only speak for states that I've worked with, and I'm specifically talking about South Carolina. I know there are a few other states, definitely around us and in the middle of the country, that have business personal property returns that are required each year. But we understand why businesses are frustrated when they get notices in the mail and they think that your accountant's been withholding information from you. Please understand that the truth is business personal property tax, especially in South Carolina and in other states, is handled very differently than income tax returns. And it's not consistent all within one state, let alone all of the individual states. It would be very complicated for a smaller firm like ourselves to be able to accommodate all of the individual counties, the cities, and let alone the state requirements to keep all tax preparers in compliance. If you're aware that you have a filing issue and you would like some help, please reach out and we'd be glad to get you the information necessary to file your returns. It's important to understand business personal property and that, yes, in fact, as a small business or any size business, this does apply to you in South Carolina. Why does it matter? Because you don't want to get into a situation where you have back taxes owed and are not in compliant with keeping all of your tax returns and tax matters in order. Lembo Accounting Solutions can help. Whether you'd likely have a filing requirement, what governing body may assess the tax, and what information is generally needed. While we may not be able to file or prepare every BPP return directly on your behalf, we can help you organize the information and get the appropriate paperwork so that you can be in compliant. Please reach out if you have any questions.